health is not just actually how well you're feeling, but at times you're going to go along and get sick, and it's how quickly you can recover from those types of things as well. In 1986, the World Health Organization put out a further clarification that a resource for everyday life, not the objective of living. Health is a positive concept emphasizing social and personal resources as well as physical capacities. I mean, like I say, health can be defined as physical, mental and social well-being and as a resource for living a full life. It refers not only to the absence of disease, but the ability to recover and bounce back from illnesses and other problems. And that's the part actually about kind of building up your recovery capability to go along and actually deal with when you're down on a slump or when you're in a work environment actually where there's illnesses going around, whether it's flu or whatever. The factors for good health include genetics, the environment, relationships and education. I mean, going through those a little bit more actually further down the presentation. But a helpful diet, exercise, screening for diseases and coping strategies can all help enhance a person's health. And these are the ones actually where a lot of those are within your control. You just got to go along and actually make time to go along and do it. Recent research has defined health as the ability of a body to adapt to new threats and infirmities. And what's driving this is that with all of the changes in modern science, illnesses that previously were killing people, they now actually have cures for them and people are living longer. But the problem with it is that, before when you were 50, 60 years of age, you didn't actually have as much trouble dealing with some of the more elderly ailments like frailty and muscles and that. So you have to be wary of how you can go along and actually deal with that as an ailment. So health, the definition links health explicitly with well-being and contextualizes health as a human right, acquiring physical and social resources to achieve and maintain. And what that is, like I was saying, actually, health is not a right that you get at birth. Health is something that you actually have to work on and aspire to achieve. Mental and physical health are two common diseases, two common types of health that are often talked about. But you can also look at things like spiritual health, financial health, emotional health. Emotional intelligence is a big one that's out there. And I mean, if you get these right, if you get these wrong, these have been linked with things like higher stress levels, and it can impact your, it's like that kind of weight on your shoulder that you've got to go along and be wary of. So all of these things on their own are manageable, but when they actually start stacking on top of each other, that's when things become a little bit more serious. In a person who experiences physical health, bodily functions are working at peak performance. Now, like I say, I'm talking about this, I'm not necessarily living it. I'm not a good example in that space. But another part actually that's very important here is we've got to go along actually and exercise regularly, have a balanced nutritional diet, and make sure you take adequate rest as well. When something goes wrong, we can go along and actually and again get treatment for it. I mean, there's medications out there, there's actually natural herbs that are out there as well to go along and actually get you through these. But it is important that you go along and actually balance those with exercise and eating properly. Physical well-being involves pursuing a healthful life cycle to decrease the risk of disease. And where we actually talking about physical health a lot, I suppose I'll give you this story, which is why this is important to me. But my father had his first heart attack at 47 years of age. He had 63 more heart attacks over a 27-year period before the last one killed him. My mother had one heart attack at 56, didn't survive it. She had lived through about 27 or 28 of my dad's heart attacks at that stage, where she suffered all of the anguish, but not the actual attack itself. And I mean, she reared 9 of us during that period as well. My brother at 49 years of age, and he's the healthy one. I mean, he would be out walking the dog, 45 minutes to an hour every day. He was actually walking down the 5th fairway playing golf on a Sunday morning, and actually ended up having a massive heart attack on the golf course. He was rushed off for open heart surgery, and he had 3 major arteries and 2 minor arteries replaced. The rest of us, like straight away when we heard that, we all went off to the doctor to get ourselves checked out, as you do. And I mean, I've been doing it ever since. And last year, I was coming along and my doctor had said to me, like, we've done all the tests and everything looks good actually, but maybe we need to do something a little bit more invasive. So he sent me for an angiogram, which is basically where they shoot the dye into the heart. I went in, my wife actually was saying, this is a waste of time, you're grand, aren't you? Look at you, you're fine. But when I went in, actually, they came along and found 4 major blockages. 2 were at 80%, 1 at 90, and 1 at 95. Right? Now, this is, thankfully good timing, because for me it was all preventative. But this is the sort of stuff that, because I had actually gone into my GP at the start, like 12 years prior to that, he had built up a baseline of what is normal for me and what is, out of sync. And by using that, you can actually go along and hopefully make those preventative calls in advance. And that's the importance of managing your health. I don't know who here drives their car when you get a chance to. You'll bring your car in for a maintenance check every year. How often hands up here, who actually goes into the doctor every year for a checkup?
I go twice a year.
Yeah, well, see, once you get to our age, the thing is, you don't have to. Right, I'm joking. But the thing is, you can actually start doing that at a much younger age as well, because again, the more of a life cycle or profile that they've actually built up, the better they can go along and actually make these prognoses. But I mean, that's the kind of physical health and all of the ramifications of that. But I mean, mental health is a little bit more difficult because it's a person's emotional, social, and psychological well-being. And one of the big things about mental health is, it's the person actually that's suffering it, they're the ones that need to go along and actually do something about it. Is it all in my mind, or is it actually something real? So it's important as physical health to a full active lifestyle, but the diagnosis depends on the individual's perception of their experience. And mental health is not only the absence of depression, anxiety, and another disorder, it also depends on the ability to enjoy life, bounce back after difficulties. And I mean, that's the part actually where a lot of people suffer the most, that they come along and they go through something, and if nothing else happens, they can recover from it. But it's when you have 2 or 3 or 4 things, that's the build-up actually of where you want to be able to recover from those. Achieve balance, and I mean, this is the work-life balance, or, can I leave work and go home and take a break from it? Those are all important. The ability to adapt to adversity, because one of the biggest challenges that people have these days is that there's so much what they call fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that FUD factor. There's so much change going on. There's so much, there was a time when you take on a job in a company, especially public sector companies, where it was like a pensionable job. You started at 25 and you knew you could actually work through to 65. Now, like a lot of the jobs that people actually go into are on contract. You can get a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract or even shorter, and then you got to prove yourself to get to the next one. So that type of uncertainty is making it it's making people feel a lot less safe and secure. You just got to be careful of it. And I mean, the other part is knowing what your potential is. And I mean, this is the part actually you were saying you're working in a bank. Right, it may not sound glamorous, right, to a lot of people. And financial services, like I say, I've been in it for 25 years, so I feel your pain. But the other thing about it is that the service you bring, people could not survive without it. And that's the part actually where you got to go along and actually say, yeah, what I do makes a difference. Now, my wife used to always go along and say to me as well, is the day I get up in the morning and actually say I don't want to go to work is the day I need to be looking for my next job. And that's the part actually where you have to be getting as much out of it as you're putting into it. And I don't mean just that financially, but you got to enjoy what you're doing. If you're not, it's no harm to stop and think, should I be looking at something else? Because in a lot of these things, actually, it's the thought process of it, actually trying to make a decision, is where most people go through the stress and strain. Once they make a decision, good or bad, at least they've made a decision and they're going to try something. Now, if it works, great. If it doesn't, make another change and actually try that. And that's the important part of actually going along, and rather than staying stuck in a rut, to go along actually and say, I've hit that point now where it's like that crossroads, right? I can keep going straight on and accept that what I have is good enough, or I've always wanted to try this. Let's try it. Now, if you can actually do the two of them in parallel until you're happy that the second one makes sense, great. But if not, that's the part actually where, am I doing the right thing? It may keep you awake at night, but from the time you make a decision and accept it, I can guarantee you'll sleep a lot better. Preserving health actually is, practice for good health. I mentioned actually the social and economic environment. This one is huge. I mean, this is going to sound stupid, or obvious, but if you come from a very wealthy area, it actually does make it an awful lot easier to survive than if you come from a poorer area. And that goes without saying. The physical environment, I mean, what your surrounding environment is like, whether there's pollution, whether there's parasites. I mean, again, as you go down the food chain, unfortunately, it becomes a lot harder to go along and survive in those areas. And I mean, the last one actually, which is around your characteristics and your behaviour, you as a person. And this is your genes, which is, like I say, I can understand being overweight, why my heart problem was a bigger issue. My brother was 49 and he was as fit as a fiddle. He was about half the size of me. So, I mean, he did all the right things, but it was the genes that actually caught up on him. But likewise, it's genetics, income, educational level impacts it as well. And things like relationships with your friends and with your family. Because, I mean, all of these things, someone that can actually keep an eye on you at times, or to go along and actually hold you accountable, those things are very important as well. And I mean, for you to be able to go along and feel comfortable enough to have a conversation with someone, that is huge, right? And my father, you'll hear a lot of sayings actually from him, because he was a very wise man, stubborn, but he was wise as well. I mean, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should actually listen twice as hard as you talk. Now, I will stop talking in a few minutes and you will all get an opportunity to talk, but it's some of these things actually you don't have to get Harvard research to go along and kind of validate. The best way to maintain health is to preserve a healthy lifestyle rather than waiting until we're sick to put things right. And that's what I was kind of saying before. Having those regular checkups, it's great to go in and actually find out, John, everything's perfect. I'll see you in a year's time. That's great. But if they go along actually and start noticing things out of sync, they can go along and say, maybe we'll do an extra test or whatever. Those are huge. The state of enhanced well-being is referred to as wellness. Maintaining wellness and optimal health is a lifelong daily commitment. Now again, some of the simple steps that you can actually do to maximize your health. A balanced, nutritious diet, sourced as natural as possible. And I mean, that's not going into the local takeaway and getting your burger and chips. It's actually doing something proper. Regular exercise, screening for diseases, learning to manage stress. Huge, because stress takes on a lot of different things for different people. And knowing actually what's the one that puts you into maybe that little uncertain environment is something that's worth noting for you. And there's some easy ways of getting over that as well, as long as you can do it in time. Engaging in activities that provide purpose and connections to others. And that's this thing of, right, some people actually like to work on their own, but it's also nice at times to have that interaction with other people as well. And this is where, working from home and stuff like that, actually getting that balance right is important. Maintaining a positive outlook and appreciating what you have. I mean, this is like, are you the cup half full or the cup half empty, right? There's still the same amount of water in it, but the thing is you can go along and say, at least I have a half left, versus, I have to go up to the bar again actually in a couple of minutes because the pint is nearly empty. Bad. I come from Ireland actually, so drinking associations can be taken out of control. And I mean, the other part actually is the value system. What's important to you? What are you willing to put up with? What are you not willing to put up with? I mean, that's the one actually that a lot of people need to go along and focus on as well. And bear in mind that health is different for each person in this room. And actually how you deal with stress, how you actually deal with obstacles and all that actually will vary from person to person. So like what works for me may not work for you. But the thing is that by talking to someone actually and even making them, like if they're talking about a stress about something that they've gone through, by saying to them like, something like that actually happened to me as well. And you can get through it. That's a trouble shared is a trouble halved actually at times. And it's important to go along and bear that in mind. There's very few people that are going through things that no one else has gone through. But the important thing is trying to find out how to make that connection to understand where the challenges are. It may not be possible to avoid disease completely, but doing as much as we can to develop resilience and prepare the body and mind to deal with problems as they arise is a step we can all take. And again, that's building up the reserves to go along as you deal with problems as they come up.